So this has to be the most disrespectful thing I learned today. And I bet you didn't know this, but at the next Olympic Games, the Native Americans who invented lacrosse won't even be allowed to play it. So to explain, modern lacrosse derives from a sport played by the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, who are commonly known by their somewhat disrespectful exonym, the Iroquois. It was a deeply important and spiritual practice. For example, male newborns were given miniature cradle sticks and adults were buried with their favorite stick. And in the 1800s, white Canadians who colonized the lands of the Haudenosaunee sought to appropriate the sport for themselves. They did this by formalizing its practice and creating rules around participation in official contests, with one of them being, no Indian must play in a match for a white club unless previously agreed upon. And due to this civilizing mission, indigenous children were forced to give up their ancestral practice for European sports. And although lacrosse did survive, it was stripped of its spiritual significance and repackaged by colonial institutions. Fast forward to today, the Olympic Charter requires teams to represent recognized nation states with national Olympic committees. But this framework assumes European-style nation states and completely ignores indigenous nations which predate colonial borders by centuries. The Haudenosaunee Confederacy has existed for over 1,000 years and has maintained treaties with the United States, France, Great Britain, New York State, and the Netherlands. They travel on their own passports, operate under their own governance structures, and maintain diplomatic relationships as a sovereign entity. On top of this, their lacrosse team, the Haudenosaunee Nationals, have competed in international sports competitions since 1990. They've ranked third in the world and have traveled to every single world championship. But still, they won't be allowed to play at the Olympics. And the International Olympic Committee has suggested that the solution be that Haudenosaunee athletes try out for the US or Canadian teams. In other words, the only way that the people who invented lacrosse can play the game on the biggest stage is by acting on the behalf of the countries that colonized them. But one star on the team, Lyle Thompson, had a powerful response saying, "I would never play for Canada or the US." But what do you think about this, and do you want a full breakdown? If so, go to the article that I wrote about it on my Substack, History Can't Hide. To do that, go to historycan'thide.com, or if you're on Instagram, comment the word newsletter below to be DM'd the link to my Substack account. And then let me know if you want me to make a part 2 with more updates and ways to support the team, and then of course, follow for more.